Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read words and other books too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah, and we do indeed read words in other books.
You didn't have to call me on it. I was just going to roll with it.
Of course I had to call you on it.
That's true. That's your job, huh?
It is my job. What are cousins for?
Well, later you can call me on a very bad reading of Tonight. We are on another step to the journey of the center of the Discworld. We are going to read The Truth by Terry Pratchett. But first, Sarah, what is something that has been great lately?
You know, I was thinking about what I was going to answer for this because we're doing a double recording. So I had to have two responses, and I didn't come up with either of them, even though I should have. So, something good that's happened lately. I was able to do my ticket for work really quickly. That was nice. It's nice when I have a ticket that goes by quickly and I feel like I know what I'm doing. I like feeling like I know what I'm doing. And that's not always the case when you work in software development.
I wouldn't know, but I believe you.
At least, I mean, maybe other people always feel like they know what they're doing, but I certainly don't.
Well, I am going to lean back on Baldur's Gate 3 came out recently. Guess what I've been doing all week?
Does seem like fun.
It's very fun. It will come out for console soon. Well, within a month, I think.
September 6th, I think, is the date that I saw when I looked it up.
That was the original release date of the game, and then they pushed the PC release earlier. So, sucks to suck. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, but even if I had a PC, I wouldn't play it on the PC.
Seriously?
Yeah, because I just don't like sitting at my desk playing games as much as I like sitting on my couch playing games.
Oh, I agree completely. My entire life is, how can I play a video game on the couch?
That's right, because you have your PC hooked up to your TV screen, don't you?
I also bought a Steam Deck. Like, I do not play PC games at a chair because I fucking hate chairs.
Yeah, see? So I guess I could get a PC and hook it up to my TV. Probably still not great for my wrists, TBH.
Oh,
But-
well then stop playing video games and stop eating food and stop writing words. And there you go. That's what's good for your wrists.
Yeah, stop working, stop knitting, stop everything.
Do nothing. That's what you're supposed to do. But fuck that. Do what's fun.
I mean, if I could stop everything for I don't know, a month and it would heal my wrists, sure, I would do that. But carpal tunnel is not something that can be fixed, just kind of mitigated a little bit. So it wouldn't actually do anything, which is why I have not bothered trying to do that.
So what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking lemon wine.
Oh, of your own creation?
Of my own creation, mostly because I didn't feel like opening up a bottle of actual wine.
I feel that.
What are you drinking?
Currently, I'm drinking some red wine in honor of Otto, but I would say that this episode is mostly fueled by margaritas.
Is that what you have been drinking prior to recording?
Yes, I'm sure everyone is shocked.
Was this a work event? Just a fun thing?
Just a fun thing. My favorite brewery opened a new location, so we had to go try it out.
Nice.
'Twas fantastic. Oh, by my favorite brewery, I mean Future Primitive.
Is that the brewery that sells the beer that has Chris Panettiere's art on it?
Exactly, yes.
The Superior Brewery.
Yes. The most excellent brewery has a location on the beach, so of course I went there.
Obviously.
And then it was far too busy because it was a brand new location on the beach.
Obviously.
So then I went somewhere else and drank a couple of margaritas.
Well, that sounds lovely.
It was great. Have you read anything good lately?
Yes, so I am one of the judges for the Subjective Chaos kind of awards, which I think we might have mentioned on the podcast before. And we announced the finalists a couple of weeks ago. And so now I am reading some of those books. And I read The Unbalancing by R.B. Lemberg, which is,
Oh, Arby.
yes, which is a finalist in the fantasy category. It's a birdverse novel, so it takes place in the same world as the Four Profound Weaves, which we talked about with Arby on the podcast. And it was very good. I really enjoy Arby's prose, and I liked the story. There was a little bit of book reader mismatch for spoiler reasons that I don't want to go into, but had nothing to do with the book and everything to do with me as a reader. You're making a face. I can tell you off air, but I don't think it's fair to listeners to have something pretty integral to the plot spoiled.
You're right. We'll talk about it later.
So that gave me mixed feelings about it, but like it's a very good book.
Well, excellent.
Have you read anything good lately?
Why would you even ask me that?
To be cruel.
So rude. No.
Just a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 dialogue.
A lot of Baldur's Gate 3 dialogue and also a lot of new employee, like, orientation literature.
Do you have a new employee?
Yeah. I mean, not yet, but
But you will?
yeah. So that's what my brain is at. So instead of getting into that, let's talk about Terry Pratchett.
Yes. Reading this book. So this book is all about journalism in Ankh-Morpork. And reading this book sure hits just a little different after having read the biography that Rob Wilkins did, A Life with Footnotes, which talks in length about his experiences as a journalist. And like, obviously, I knew that he had worked as a journalist, right? Like, that wasn't a surprise. But I feel like it just, having read about some of the specific experiences he had, and then reading this book, like you can see some of that direct correlation.
I have a couple of points out of this book where I was like, is this because he was a journalist?
Was one of them the spike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a couple of, not treatises, but monologues about the nature of truth and the purpose of journalism. And I was like, hey, I think he might have a point to this.
Is this the most autobiographical Discworld book?
Ooh, maybe. I think an argument could be made, yeah.
I think an argument could be made. I also have to wonder, at one point, the protagonist of the novel, William de Worde, has a kind of I don't know if I'd go quite so far as to call it an existential crisis, but he has this kind of existential crisis about how he's doing this hard-hitting journalism, right? And people are reading it, and then they're using the newspapers as like toilet paper. And I kind of have to wonder, like, is that something that Pratchett ever struggled with? The fact that his words were, ephemeral?
That is a fascinating conversation, which I think involves the idea of books as art. Because when you think about it, a story and the book are two separate things.
Mm-hmm. They definitely are.
So who gives a shit about a first printing if it's the same story that's told later?
Me.
Well, yes. That is why I brought it up, because we can argue about it.
Yes. Yes. But see, I am definitely a book collector, which is different from someone who like loves reading and loves books. A lot of overlap, right? But they are two separate habits, I think. And so for me, book as object is, I won't say equally important to book as story, but certainly has quite a high value when it comes to things like first editions and special editions and things like that.
So when I think about first editions, etc., I think the best example is Frankenstein, where the first edition was heavily edited by Percy Shelley, and then you get later versions which were closer to Mary Shelley's actual vision. And that is fascinating. And that's what is interesting. And that is what I care about. The words on the page. And how do those differ?
Well, but that's part of it, right? That's part of what makes the first edition valuable is the differences. It's not the only thing that makes it valuable, right? Because there's also
It is the only thing that makes it valuable. Anything else is bullshit.
okay, regardless of how you feel about it, like in terms of just logistically speaking, in monetary value,
Other people will pay a lot of money for a dumb thing. Yes.
sure. But we're not arguing over whether or not we agree at this exact moment in time.
No. I agree. Other people will pay a
Yes.
lot of money for a dumb thing. Yeah,
Yes,
that's true.
But part of what makes first editions valuable or can make first editions valuable is scarcity as well. So like that's a factor. But I agree that seeing how a text has evolved in editions and printings is like that's the main interest.
But that's the content. That's the words.
Yeah.
The actual physical form means nothing.
Well, I would still like it. I mean, I still want to have it.
Why? Your entire argument just now had nothing to do with that. Why are you backtracking?
I'm not backtracking. What do you mean I'm backtracking?
We just said, we agreed that how the content changes over time is fascinating.
Yes.
So why is the physical object important?
I mean, part of that is scarcity, but also just, I don't know, I like objects. I like physical objects. And I like having something in my hand that I can reference when I'm comparing two texts, right? Like, sure, you can go to Internet Archive or whatever and look up a first edition. You can go to Google Books and look at a first edition text, and you can look on Amazon and your ebook copy and you can see what the modern text is. But that's not the same.
Why not?
For me, because I like objects. I like book as object.
No, I get that you like it, but how is it different?
Because in one you have the physical object and in the other you don't.
So you like holding it?
Yeah.
So if you printed out the original version, you would enjoy that.
It would be interesting, but that's not having a first edition. Like that's a copy of a first edition. That's not the first edition.
So if you are holding it, it doesn't help.
I don't know how I can put into words, like, again, book as object. Like, okay, maybe I see what you're saying, that I am conflating the two things.
I think there is a story, which is very important, and there is also a historical object, and those are two very different things.
They're different, but they're related.
Disagree.
I mean, you don't
Disagree.
have the one without the other.
Well, technically, yes. But once you have had one, you can have the other without it.
And I like having the historical object too.
All right.
There's nothing wrong with not wanting that or not being interested in it. But similarly, there's nothing wrong with liking that.
No, but they're two very different things.
That's why I said there's book as object and book as story.
No, I think The Truth, as a novel by Tara Pratchett, is very involved with the difference between the truth, as one might say, versus the physical object of a story. And I think it's worth like teasing out that difference.
Mm.
Those are two extremely different things. We get to think about value as, well, as you said, a historical object. The main character, William de Worde, is this, I would say, artifact of a different time, or a product of a different time. What would you call him?
I mean, so he's the son of a very wealthy, like upper echelon aristocrat. And he definitely has been shaped by his father's views. He's trying to grow beyond that, but he definitely has been influenced by the way that he grew up, because how could he not be?
And so that's a really wonderful starting point for this book. But then it grows beyond it.
What does the back of the book actually say? An ethical journalist. He has a proclivity for investigating stories. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see the way that William grows and confronts his father's viewpoints as the story progresses. And we'll talk more about him in the spoiler section, because I have lots of thoughts.
Okay. One of our non-spoiler moments is the upper glasses, which is an excellent pun. And also his sort of contemplation on upbringing.
Yeah, I remember the phrase the upper glasses, but I don't actually remember what that quote was saying
Got you. So
specifically.
this is an extremely concrete example of Pratchett's humor and how it plays out in the written word very, very well. So he starts with a metaphor about a glass half full, glass half empty, and there's a very well-known quote about someone going, "This isn't my glass. What? My glass was full. Who's been stealing my liquor?" And then it transitions to someone who sees their glass as full versus someone who sees their glass as empty. And then there's the upper glasses.
Yes, I do actually remember that now.
Of course you do, because it's very good.
It was very good. I don't mean to sound as unsure of myself as I actually did.
Those were two jokes seamlessly intertwined. From a metaphor into a pun. And that is just Pratchett being very good at what he does.
I mean, he's an excellent wordsmith, and this book is no exception.
Absolutely. So this book is about the, I would say, foundation of journalism in Discworld.
Certainly I think I would argue just a little bit that journalism has already been founded because William has this monthly newsletter that he sends out to patrons that includes, important happenings in Ankh-Morpork. But this is definitely the foundation of the press.
The press, then.
William was a journalist before there was a journal.
It's true. And then he accidentally created a journal.
And then he accidentally created a journal, yes.
And there sure are some highs and lows to that the book follows.
Yes. So, as one can imagine, not everyone is thrilled about there being a daily newspaper. The engravers don't like it because they're feeling threatened by the invention of the printing press, or not the invention, because it's not like it's clear from the book that the printing press has been invented already. This is just like the first time that one has really successfully been installed in Ankh-Morpork. So the engravers are not happy. They set up their rival press. The aristocrats aren't super thrilled because they don't want people, knowing about what's happening in the city.
My favorite conversation about this was, I think, between Vetinari and William de Worde. And Vetinari says, people don't want to know new things. They just want to be told things that they already know. They do not want news. They want olds.
Yeah. I mean, Vetinari on the nose as ever. But that's not him being against the creation of a newspaper.
He was trying to give William advice.
Yes. William, of course, ignores it, but...
So, I think you might have picked up on something I did not hear. What is this going on page 32?
Oh, it's a reference to the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Or at least I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, kings and lords come and go and leave nothing but statues in a desert, which I think, maybe I'm wrong, but, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in a desert, etc., etc., etc. And I'm always primed to find Ozymandias references and love when I find them, because in 7th and 8th grade, I had to memorize a poem a week and recite it in front of the class. I mean, not me specifically, the entire class had to do this. I wasn't singled out. And the only poem that I remember from those 2 years is Ozymandias.
Well, that's obviously because our grandfather was a professor of Shelley.
You would think that that's the reason, but it's actually has nothing to do with it.
Really?
Yeah. But yes, I saw that and I was like, hey, I get that reference.
You know what reference I got?
What reference did you get?
This book has a couple of references to earlier The Watch novels. I really hate that phrase. It's a very poorly done title of a group of books, but it's not up to me. So all right, let's keep going.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you could drop the article when talking about it in this kind of context.
Watch books? No, that just sounds like I'm talking about a timepiece on your wrist.
You could say City Watch because I think they are technically the City Watch books.
Is it City Watch?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, that's better. You're right.
Yes. Wikipedia, that, bastion of correctness, says the subseries is City Watch.
I think it always bothers me because I think of it as Night Watch.
Yes.
Which is not correct, but also very correct at the same time.
I mean, they start out as the Night Watch. They just evolve into the City Watch as the time goes on.
But this book references a couple of different stories that we hear from the City Watch series. And that was very fun, I would say. I think this is the first time we've had such delightful oblique references to previous books.
I think we've had references to previous books before.
We've had references, yes. But have we had excellent references?
I would say that we've had excellent references.
All right, fair enough.
But it was fun. You're right. It was fun seeing a lot of these references to previous City Watch books, but from an outsider's point of view, because most of the books that we've read previously about those characters have been from their points of view. And so to see what kind of the rest of the city is thinking about them was fun. And that made it feel maybe a little different and unique.
Absolutely. So, I have a question.
Shoot.
Why is there a common trope that idiot savants know shit about architecture?
You're talking about Mr. Tulip.
I am talking about Mr. Tulip.
It's not just architecture he knows, it's art too.
Yes, but that is a thing, though.
I'm not familiar with the trope, so I can't speak to that. I thought in this case, the point was that, there's more to Mr. Tulip than one assumes just by looking at him and his actions.
Yes, absolutely. But I've definitely... Okay, I am directly referencing Over the Garden Wall, which is a short animated series.
I don't think I've watched it. I think
I made you watch a little bit of it.
You made me watch an episode, but I don't think I ever watched past that.
It similarly has a character suddenly know things about architecture, which makes another character go, wait, you're smart. Maybe those are the only two things in the whole world, but I doubt it.
Probably not. But I would argue that 2 examples is not enough to make a trope. But I think in this case, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know the context for Over the Garden Wall, but I think in this case, it's the distance between being very good at hitting people and art and architecture, which you would think is about as far apart skill sets as one can get. And I think that's the contrast there, because it doesn't necessarily have the same impact if he knows a lot about, I don't know, history. Maybe it would if he knew a lot about gardening, but gardening is also, I feel, a less intellectual field in many cases.
You expect him to be a big dumb idiot because he is generally in everyday stuff, but then he has this one specialization and it doesn't overlap with anything else, and so it can be very abrupt.
I think that was what I was trying to say, but a lot more accurately and eloquently.
Well, thank you. But I've definitely seen it in at least one other thing that I can name. I don't know. I would really love to hear about other places where that shows up, because I don't think this is the only place. I feel like I've seen this in other places.
I would be willing to believe that you have, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, I'd love to hear about it.
So, listeners, if you have any examples, please let us know.
Well, Sarah, this is technically the first book in a series, so could someone start reading Discworld here?
I think you could.
I actually think you could, yeah.
Yeah, I think you could. I disagree with this book being categorized as, because I think Wikipedia also categorizes it as the first book in the Industrial Revolution books or whatever. And I disagree with Wikipedia's categorization of it as that, because I think it's much more standalone. But I think you could start here.
I understand if you have a definition of novels called the industrialization novels. Yeah, this fits. And this is the first one. But as far as...
Actually, technically, Moving Pictures is the first one, according to Wikipedia.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah,
I'm trying to throw you a bone here, Wikipedia. Why are you doing this to me?
It is even worse.
Ugh.
There are a couple of books that are standalone novels that all in some ways deal with some kind of industrialization of an industry. And this is one of them, but they're not related to each other in any way. Like, the characters don't overlap really.
They're not actually a series.
Yeah, it's not a series. I wouldn't call it a series. Wikipedia says that Monstrous Regiment is the next book in that quote-unquote series. Yeah, it's Monstrous Regiment, and then it's Unseen Academicals.
No!
Yeah, it's horrible. Why? Wikipedia, why?
This is the worst, like, not as in it's a bad subplot, but in that it's poorly defined.
Yes, I would call these standalone novels. I would not call them part of a series necessarily. But I think that, yeah, sure, you could start with this one.
Wait, how is the next one Unseen Academicals? Obviously, the next one...
No, the next is Monstrous Regiment. It doesn't include any of the Moist von Lipwig novels because those are their own subseries.
Wait, what are those?
The Moist von Lipwig books on Wikipedia.
Oh, I thought those were considered part of the industrialization novels.
Not according to this Wikipedia chart.
Okay, well, Wiki is wrong.
I mean, that's been our entire argument, yes.
I was going to argue why. Actually, no, I can't really argue why. This is a good industrialization novel, and therefore it should be part of the Moist von Lipwig series. And I'm arguing myself into and then out of a paper bag. I don't know what to do.
Either way, we can move on. This is a perfectly good standalone. It's not necessarily my favorite book. It has a lot of good qualities. It's witty and has, Terry Pratchett's typical insight into privilege and racism and social stratification and all of that.
It's extra fascinating to read after you have read the auto/biography, I would say.
Yeah, it's extra fascinating to read it after having read A Life with Footnotes. So definitely you could start here.
The remainder of this episode contains spoilers.
Okay, let's talk about William.
Oh, he tries so hard.
He tries so hard. And I appreciate that even when he doesn't always recognize that he's being speciesist, the text does. For example, he makes some comment to this group of dwarves that he runs into who own the printing press. And he makes some kind of comment about engraving being like magic. And then he asks what their press does or what their work does. And they snark back at him that it's like magic. And so I appreciated that.
There's a point where William has to not defend his father, but describe his father and talk about how racist his father is. And honestly, I would say William de Words is one of the best examples of a fragile white progressiveness.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because he has a whole thing about how, yes, I'm trying way too hard to be not racist. But have you seen my dad? What else am I gonna do? Of course I'm gonna overcorrect, and it's still not gonna be great, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have some frustrations with William, not with William as Pratchett has written him, but with William as a character. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I think Pratchett does what he intends with William. He's very intentional about William's failings and William's struggles. And as a character, the way that William tries but doesn't always manage to acknowledge his privilege and his racism or speciesism frustrates me. But like, that's the point. Like, Pratchett is doing that intentionally, but it still frustrates me.
There's a lot of racism in this book, but there has been a lot of racism in earlier Pratchett books. What's the difference? In this book, it's all on purpose and it's supposed to make you mad. Whereas in some of the earlier books, it's supposed to be a joke and make you laugh. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, I think, again, Pratchett does a really good job, but it means that I'm left with this main character that I don't always like.
Interesting. I didn't have that problem with William. I mean, obviously, I didn't agree with everything he did, but I didn't feel that upset with his choices either.
I don't know. I mean, it's not that I was upset with his choices. I understood why he was making those choices. I just couldn't necessarily, for example, he talks a lot about how he is not trying to stand on his family, right? He's trying to stand on his own and make his own way in the world and do this journalism because that's what he's passionate about, and his family is not supportive. But then he has this whole thing about how, like, at the end, the watch was for other people and he's a Deward. And I don't know, it just, I think the quote is, the watch was for other people who couldn't sort out their problems their own way. And it just, that lack of self-awareness was frustrating. Like, this is what you've been trying to grow out of, right? Like, this is what you're trying to acknowledge and be better than. And so I found that specifically the way that he doesn't always recognize his privilege frustrating, but it makes a lot of sense for his character. And I think from a character perspective, yes, that's the way he would react.
I think from another angle, we have Saccharissa.
I've always pronounced it as like saccharin.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but it's not spelled like saccharin.
Saccharin is CH, isn't it?
There were 2 C's.
There might be 2 C's.
Anyway, I think it's Saccharissa.
I like Saccharissa better than Saccharissa.
Yeah. So she is an employee for the paper, and she has a couple of very excellent moments.
She is the daughter of the engraver that William used to go to for his monthly newsletter, and then dumps in favor of the dwarves and their printing press. And she comes to berate him because the money that they got from his job was basically like their entire monthly salary. And how are they going to make a living if they don't have that? And how could he do this? And then he ends up employing her. Yeah.
He flips it. He reverses it. She becomes his employee. But she also becomes a character who stands up for not only herself, but also her morals in a way that I really appreciated.
Yeah. And she calls him on a lot of his privilege. So I appreciated that as well.
Yeah, that's why I felt like it was relevant in this context.
Yes.
But we have seen some poorly done female characters, I would say, from Pratchett.
Yes, I would say that his female characters have been a mixed bag.
I would say that continues to be true, but Saccharin is a point on the better side.
Saccharissa, yeah. I mean, I do think that she is a much more well-rounded female character than some of his others.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Not just in her mannerisms, but also in that she
feels like a person,
gets a chance to criticize.
Yes, that too. She's definitely I would say, a supportive but critical role in William Deward's like evolution as a human being.
And that's a loaded sentence, right? Because we have a lot of very fun races in this novel.
Yes, but William is not one of them.
I really enjoyed Otto, who was their photographer and also a vampire who did like a Alcoholics Anonymous version of swearing off of human blood.
Yes.
He was very fun. There was a lot of very fun moments with him, trying to withstand a heaving bosom because that was,
One of the things that traditionally vampires go for.
yeah, I was gonna say like catnip, but yours was better.
I mean, you could probably call it vampiric catnip.
There is a whole comparison to be made between vampires and cats, but I would not like to do it right now.
We'll save that for a bonus episode.
Yeah, that feels very specific. But Otto, we've sort of been introduced to the idea that vampires equate to alcoholism in the previous novel, where Vimes, is that the previous novel? Where Vimes sort of connects with a vampire lady who is also sworn off of her drug of choice.
The fifth elephant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is not the first time that they've talked about the Black Ribboners,
Yeah.
which is this group of vampires that, as you say, have sworn off blood.
But it goes into it in much more detail.
Yeah, I think this is the first time because whatever the Lady Margalotta, or whatever her name is, she's a very, very minor character, whereas Otto gets much more page time. So we see how that impacts him, obviously a lot more, just because he's around more.
Yeah. He also, I think, has more lingering power because we see him for a lot longer later. Is that spoilers? I don't think so.
Well, Lady Margalotta comes back.
Not as much as Otto.
Not as much as Otto, it's true. I think Otto does get much more page time just for the series and not just for this book in comparison. But we also get to see Otto struggle in a way that we don't see Lady Margalotta struggle. I really hope it's something like that. I'm not actually sure that that's her name.
It's close enough.
It's close enough.
It's the vampire lady in the fifth elephant. We didn't even talk about her in the episode. That's how little she mattered.
I don't think we did. And I have Googled it, and it is Lady Margalotta. But back to my point, we see Otto in situations where he is actually struggling. So we see how his decision to not drink blood affects him. Like we've talked about his struggle with the heaving bosoms, but also when he's exposed to bleeding, like how does he handle that when he turns into dust because of the flash from his camera, like how they deal with that. So we see him essentially deal with his vampirism more than we ever see Lady Margalotta deal with it.
Well, we see Lady Margalotta in her natural habitat, whereas Otto is trying to conform to a different culture.
Is Lady Margalotta the vampire that we see in? I guess she is. Yeah, okay. She does appear in the fifth elephant.
She's kind of a deus ex machina in the fifth elephant, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
No. I don't really remember her in the fifth elephant. I just know that it's hinted that she and Vetinari have a romance going on.
Yeah.
Otto is not a deus ex machina.
He is not whatsoever. He is a wonderful character who struggles with his culture versus the city he wants to live in. It's very good. And we get a tiny little bit of the Igors again in this book.
We do get a little bit of the Igors. Not enough Igor.
Never enough Igor. I say that now. I won't say when that will change because that would be a spoiler. I have a comment. I don't know where I'm going with it. So feel free to cut me off and tell me I'm being goofy.
Okay.
But I feel like Pratchett's depiction of mental illness, for lack of a better word, is played for laughs in a way that I don't really love. It's not so bad that I hate it. It's just not ideal. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because we get the homeless population working with the Gaspode the talking dog, the wonder dog. And they all have situations that are absolutely played for laughs that necessarily don't need to be. I don't know. I'm not going anywhere with this. It just doesn't feel great.
I agree that it's not so egregious that it's terrible, but it's also not great. I do think that, again, part of it, so this book was published in 2000,
Fair,
which
yeah.
is not to justify or excuse any of it, but even like I think that our knowledge of mental health and the way that we treat mental health is very different now than it was even in 2000.
23 years ago.
Yeah, 23 years ago. I was trying to avoid saying that number because I don't want to acknowledge how long ago that was.
Yeah, but I do want to acknowledge like the way some of the narration treats these characters.
I think you're right. That's why I'm saying like that's not an excuse or justification. Like Pratchett should have done better. I agree. But I guess what I'm saying is that Pratchett was not alone in treating these things as a joke in 2000.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say I'm not mad, but it kind of sucks.
He could have done better.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a downer to end the episode on.
The only thing I can think of to rebut is that a friend of mine was complaining about the Guardians of the Galaxy movie and all of the animal violence in it. Because apparently that's a thing. I haven't seen it. I don't know, but it sounds terrible. And as she was relaying the story to me, the bad guys of this book were throwing a bag full of puppies into the river.
Not specifically puppies, just terriers.
I was being dramatic.
Okay. I'm sorry for trying to be accurate during your dramatic retelling.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then the bags don't sink because the river is so polluted, so it just floats on top a little bit. And then also, Gaspode doesn't, this talking dog Gaspode doesn't tell his fleet of homeless people to rescue them, but like, I think it's implied that he was part of why they rescued those puppies. And they aren't puppies, I know, but all dogs are puppies, so shut up.
All dogs are puppies. No, you can say it now when we've already determined that the dogs are not physically puppies.
Yeah.
But when you talk about throwing dogs into the river, throwing puppies into the river, I felt like a little bit of clarification was necessary. And now you can talk about them as puppies. Because yes, all dogs are puppies.
It still felt very good to say, hey, you know that pop culture animal violence that you're very upset with? Let me tell you about this thing that I read literally just now. It was a bag full of puppies, not actually puppies. It was puppies, whatever. And it was fun. It was nice.
I do appreciate that they did not sink.
Me too. I can't argue that Pratchett never does animal violence because we did just read The Fifth Elephant.
Yeah, I was going to make that argument and then I was like, no, I can't.
No, we can. That was rough and surprising and I didn't like it. And we can sort of examine the psyche between why that was okay, but this wasn't later. But there is something very comforting about a world where, yeah, a sack full of dogs is not going to drown.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It was nice.
That's the kind of book I want to read.
I agree. I want to read about puppies not drowning. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon, where you can support us and find our show notes and a lot of other nonsense.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye!
Bye!